You may have to sacrifice one for the other. If you want to try to get those higher rates, get more flexible with your minimum stays. If you want to get those longer lengths of stays, you might have to get more flexible with your rates.
And I think it goes to if you're in the audience and you're listening and you're on the larger property side, if you've got a 4-bedroom, a 5-bedroom, it's probably time for you to get aggressive. Even though we see demand really, really moving us, I think it's probably time to get aggressive if you've got a larger home.
Welcome to RevLabs by PriceLabs.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of RevLabs by PriceLabs. I'm your host, Kyle Driskell. Today I'm excited to be joined by my sis from another miss, my awesome teammate, Monique DeLorenzo. Monique, welcome to the podcast. I know you've been here before. You've been the host of this. I'm sure we're going to get back to having you hosting as well, but looking forward to talking about Easter and spring break with you. How are you, Miss Monique?
I'm doing great. Happy to be back here on RevLabs with you, Kyle.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about spring break and Easter and how these two time periods are coupling together to make some really, really incredible demand patterns in a couple of markets. So today we're going to talk about Stowe, nice ski market up in Vermont. We're also going to talk about Cocoa Beach, Charleston, South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, Panama City Beach, and then Destin as well. So a whole lot of conversation about the Panhandle, but we know those are the really popular areas for spring break. So let's get started and let's just talk a little bit about spring break and how impactful this is. So Monique, what are your spring break plans? Do you have anything fun going on?
Well, I don't have kids, so spring break is a non-issue for me, but typically during the month of March, I'll be trying to get in the last skiing that I can, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but that's usually my go-to. I think if my husband were not if I were not in the picture, my husband might choose golf, which we can also talk about because there's some markets where we're seeing big impact for it for spring break and Easter. So yeah. What about you? Going anywhere?
I am. So a lot of people are going to have spring break in the U.S. towards the end of March or getting into April. My wife's a school teacher. My daughter's in 3rd grade. Their spring break is actually coming up. It's going to be on March 7th. And we're going to Memphis, Tennessee to go catch the Los Angeles Clippers versus the Memphis Grizzlies. We got courtside seats and it's Harper's first game. So super pumped about that. But I'm not hitting up any of these beach markets or the ski markets. I'm going into the city. I'm going to go check out the giant Bass Pro Shop inside of the Pyramid in Memphis. So
super cool.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and start with the ski market, if you don't mind. Let's start with Stowe.
Yeah.
And kind of talk about what we're seeing in there right now.
Yeah. Funny enough, Stowe is actually where I'm going to be the week before Easter. So Stowe is my destination of choice for that spring breaky time. What's interesting about Stowe is that, it's an East Coast ski market. So one, primarily drive to. Not a lot of people are flying in and planning really far in advance for that. We know the booking window for Stowe is typically 30-ish days or less during this time of year. What's interesting about Easter specifically and spring break is that Easter, it really depends for Easter where in the month it's falling. So this year, Easter does happen to fall very close to that very, very end of ski season where they actually can take advantage of the incoming occupancy. Like people actually might consider a last minute getaway to Stowe or one of the Northeast ski markets in general for a quick 3-4 day long week getaway to get the kids on the snow one more time. If you looked at years past though, like last year, Easter fell on April 20th, not too much of an impact in a market like Stowe, because at that point, most of the mountains are really closed. It's only the diehards that are going skiing and nobody's really traveling because, it's mud season up there. Not the most popular time to be in New England.
Yeah, that was always my experience out in the Colorado mountains too. Like if we get lucky and we have really good snow, it might extend out, but last year we didn't really get that. So one of the things that we see, and for for my folks that are watching this podcast on YouTube, sharing my screen right now. And what we're seeing is right around Easter this year, the market's really pacing ahead. So it goes exactly to what Monique is saying. There's more opportunity right here. When we look at Easter last year, which is the 19th to 20th that weekend, we can see that the market was really just about 6% occupied. That date is actually pacing ahead this year as compared to last year, even though Easter is not there. I guess because you all had a little bit more powder this year than some of the other ski markets in the US, a little bit more demand in late season there. But we do see some really, really nice numbers for Easter this year, currently sitting at about 20% occupied for the market there. Now, ski market's got a nice drive, we've got a nice drive-to market in the ski area. I'm down here in the Southeast, so a lot of these other markets would be drive-to markets for me, so to speak, going down to the Gulf. And with those, we see a lot of really, really high occupancy numbers right now. So pulled up Destin right here, and we see a couple of bumps here. So not only do we have Easter being booked, but it's kind of like the bookends around it as well. So one thing that I think that I'm kind of observing, and see how you feel about it, Monique, I think that people are able now to couple their spring break with Easter. Last year, they weren't really able to. Spring breaks run, if you're here in East Tennessee, we're going to run at the very beginning of March before spring even starts. Northeast, we're going to have it towards the end of March. But with us having that April 20th Easter, you weren't able to couple it. And it sure looks like to me that we're probably getting some extended stays, some of those longer stays. Maybe last year we went from 7 nights to 4 nights. Maybe we're able to get back closer to those 7 nights. What do you kind of see? What do you think, Monique, when you see now that we've got 2 spikes here instead of just that one for Easter that we're looking at?
Yeah, I agree. And again, if we look at where Easter was last year in Destin for April 20th, it doesn't look like you had that. So first of all, again, in this market, that Easter weekend last year seems to fall outside of some sort of like shoulder season where they weren't able to capitalize on that. And this year, the dates shifted up and the date range expanded basically. So I do agree that there's something happening, whether it's the spring break in conjunction with it, if there's any events, it's definitely a timing thing for me here, because you can actually see like that week before Easter, there was some sort of big spike last year with occupancy, right? We were already at nearly 60%, 55 to 60% around this time last year for that weekend before. That wasn't Easter. So now it's shifted a week back, but it's also expanded. So I definitely think there's something to that. So, in terms of strategy, like holding on to your minimum stay might not be a bad idea, although comes with a little bit of a caveat regarding the booking window, which we can talk about a little later on.
I was going to say, we're definitely going to get to talking about the booking window, because right now as we're recording this, we're on the 3rd of March. I think it's going to be released somewhere between the 5th and the 8th of March, but we are within a month of getting to these Easter dates. So we will talk a little bit about that booking window more in depth here. I do want to hop over and let's take a look at Panama City, which again, if you're following on YouTube, you're able to see this. If you're listening on Spotify, you're not really able to. But what we're showing right now, Easter again last year was on April 20th. We're seeing a spike as well last year in the middle of March in all of these markets. So what I'm kind of assuming in here, and you know what they say about assumptions, but I'm assuming that that's a spring break, a very popular spring break week that was in the middle of the month in March. Now that's come back a week. We've also had our Easter come in a couple of weeks. So now you've got 2 really high demand periods right there side by side. And occupancy is really taking off. What we're looking at right now for the 9th, which is the Thursday after Easter, the market in Panama City is currently at about 43% occupied versus 30% for this time period last year. So weather is basically the exact same. All it is that availability, and you've got those spring breakers coming in. You've got some people taking advantage of the Easter as well. Now, I'm going to stop sharing the screen real quick, and let's focus in on you, Monique. Let's talk about those booking windows, because one of the things we're seeing, we're already kind of past the booking window in some of these, and then some of them we're really entering this right now.
Yeah, I think going back to the first market we talked about, Stowe. I think if you want to capitalize on it, on Easter bookings for Stowe, you absolutely can, because the average booking window for this time of year in Stowe is about 32 nights. So you're right there. You might have a little bit more time to hang on to the higher rates, hang on to longer minimum stays. I wouldn't go too aggressive at this time of year, because we know that Stowe is not like a week-long vacation market, especially as we're getting towards the end of the ski season when all the mountains are going to be closing. But to me, if you're in New England, you might be able to still capitalize on that. On the flip side, when we talk about the Florida markets that we were looking at, they had lead times of, 48 nights, 30 to 45 nights was like the average, it looked like, in Panama City Beach, in Destin. So you might be past that point at this point. So if you didn't already get those longer minimum stays, you may have to sacrifice one for the other. If you want to try to get those higher rates, get more flexible with your minimum stays. If you want to get those longer lengths of stays, you might have to get more flexible with your rates.
And I think it goes to, if you're in the audience and you're listening and you're on the larger property side, if you've got a 4-bedroom, a 5-bedroom, it's probably time for you to get aggressive. Even though we see demand really, really moving us, I think it's probably time to get aggressive if you've got a larger home. Now, if you're in Destin, you're in Panama City, you've got those 1 and 2 bedroom condos, I'm going right there with you, Monique. Pull one of those levers. We don't have to cut everything out right now and just hammer our rates down. But right now is the time where you do need to kind of go in and make sure that you're aligned with what's working in the market. If you're a PriceLabs user, go to your neighborhood data, take a look at the comp sets, see how people are booking, what they're running with their minimum lengths of stay right now as well. Now, Charleston's one we haven't really talked about, and I do want to get to that because I think Charleston is just an incredibly exciting market. I'm going to share the screen real quick. And I think this goes, Monique, to your golf comment. Charleston is extremely interesting when we look at springtime, especially compared to some of these other ones. And again, if you're able to see the charts that I've got up here, what we're seeing is very similar. You've got a spring break week, you've got a Easter week as well, and then we see a lot of activity afterwards. There's one big difference in this market as compared to the other ones we've looked at, Monique, and I've pulled it up right here. And it's the week after Easter. Yeah. Last year, the market was at about 63% occupied. Right now, it's at about 30% occupancy. So it does look like a lot of demand has shifted to those 2 weeks before. Yeah. What do you kind of feel about Charleston when you look at this and we see, one, we have a lot more demand getting into April post Easter than we do with these other markets. But what's your take on Charleston?
Yeah, I mean, it's in these shoulder seasons, it's very obviously a weekend driven market as things warm up. It is also pretty clear to me, like you said, that shift, I think we pretty much can clearly attribute that to the shift between the dates that Easter fell on. Yeah. Because outside of that, like those midweek dates, those are dropping really aggressively in occupancy. Whereas last year, if we look at where Easter currently is, it saw the same thing. So I think the flip is definitely warranted. It is interesting though, that Easter week does still seem to expand to include both the actual weekend that Easter is on and a little bit after, like pretty much the full week after. Yeah,
this is an interesting view that we're looking at here, because on the previous markets that we looked at, there was like a little bit of there's a curve so we can see when people are leaving the market. And Charleston, outside of the Wednesday, April 1st, it looks like you've got some people staying really, really long. Really great demand right here in Charleston that we see. And then just as a little extra shout out for the market, man, everything going from Memorial Day past Labor Day is pacing ahead right now. So Charleston looks like it is a very in demand, healthy market right here.
Yeah, definitely does.
Sounds like the PriceLabs crew needs to get down to Charleston sometime soon.
I wouldn't mind taking another trip there.
Yeah, exactly. I was there last year. It was glorious. Now, one other thing to keep in mind when we're talking about these, Charleston and Destin are not necessarily big drive-to markets. So what we see right now is a majority of the bookings that will be there. If you're in Charleston, go ahead and be realistic with your rates. If you're not a part of these bookings right now, get your minimum stays in line. For you folks that are in the more drive-to markets, Stowe, PCB, Myrtle Beach, Cocoa Beaches, you've got a little bit of extra time there. You get a lot of bookings more in the last minute. We obviously know it's going to be competitive. So be competitive with your rates, be competitive with your minimum stays as well. Now, some of the key takeaways that I would kind of like for you all to have from this podcast. The first one is that the urgency behind your pricing is really going to differ by obviously which market you're in, the maturity, and the guest behavior. Monique, I think you did an awesome job at the very beginning calling out the drive-to market aspect of Stowe. That's so important when we're looking at these spring breaks because, hey, I've got a little bit extra time. If the weather's nice, if the snow's coming, we might get a nice influx of people coming in. It's a lot harder when you got to get there by plane. So great call out there. And then other thing just to know is your timeline is not it's not a end all be all. We're not going to be able to say like, hey, this is the exact time that you go in and move those rates. Just be aware as you are developing yourself as a revenue manager to come in, pay attention to how you're pacing, understand booking windows, understand the guest segment, and then ultimately you'll be able to get the results that you're wanting there. Now, before we head out, Monique, I know this is kind of a shorter episode, but I wanted to see if you had any advice for anybody. And if you will also, before you leave, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you if they'd like to.
Yeah, of course. I think you hit the nail on the head. The one thing that I would add is that, if you're in one of those markets where the peak booking window has already sort of passed and you're finding yourself having to deal with the urgency, use this as a learning for the future for Easter, but other holidays as well. That can shift based on the date. I did not look up when Easter next year is occurring, but you should. And if it happens to fall during those weeks where spring break is most likely going to line up with, you can prepare for that now. That would be my final parting advice, because even when we don't react quickly enough, we can always take those learnings into the future. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Monique DeLorenzo Pomeroy. You can also DM me, email me, monique.delorenzo@pricelabs.co. I'm always happy to connect with our users and anyone who's interested in learning more.
Awesome. And to answer your question, Easter is going to be very similar to what we have this year. We're heading back into March. It's going to be March 28th next year. So we're probably going to end up with some spring break and Easter combinations again next year.
Wow, good to know. Yeah. So especially in markets that would still be dealing with peak ski season, there could be opportunity there for them next year.
Absolutely.
If they get snow, fingers crossed.
Well, we'll hope that they do. And Monique, that was great advice for everybody. Keep your eyes on the prize, look forward, and learn from what you're doing right now. Monique, it's been a pleasure. I got to leave here again. She's my sis from another miss. Monique's one of my favorite teammates that I've got here. I love everybody at PriceLabs, but Monique's my girl. So it's great chatting with you, and we will see you again very soon.
I look forward to the next one. Thanks for having me, Kyle.
See ya. Have a great day.